everybody? It is Saturday afternoon for me, Saturday evening for a few of you. I'm just checking. I just got a message just as we went live. I got to check, make sure everything's okay. I do apologize, but things are going on that I've got to keep my phone live and monitor my messages. I've got things that can't be ignored at this time. And the new reason that Tuesdays and Thursdays have been live are just too much going on to record stuff. And now my dog was hollering for dog biscuit. So Thursday night we worked on designing this trike basket, whatever. And it went through a few different revisions, and a couple of things. There was fewer viewers than normal Thursday night, which the Tuesdays and Thursday lives was were definitely hit and miss. But it was only after the live stream did I realize I was going heads up with the presidential debate. So I said, oh, well, I guess that would be more entertaining for some folks than to watch Hobo with Wood try and design something. I ended up jumping over to YouTube as soon as I realized it and watching the replay while I continued to work on the design. And I cut out this one. This was the first version. I didn't bother cutting the basket weave into the basket just to save laser time. But this demonstrated a few flaws. And I, posted this in the Hobo with Wood group on Facebook, and there was some feedback from the Peanut Gallery, and very valuable feedback. And there was some feedback in the comments after I ended the stream that I didn't even think about, but Ed Cameron caught it. Is it Ed? I think it was Ed. Initially, I planned to put additional tabs on the base that these wheels would snap onto. And I'm pretty sure it was Ed. He put in the comments, says, well, if you do that, how's that going to affect the LightBurn's ability for resizing slots and tabs? Well, that was going to only allow LightBurn to resize the additional tab that I put on there for the wheels, making the rest of it, the rest of that tab for the base not adjustable or unrecognizable by LightBurn. So good catch on that one. I ended up not doing that and just simply gluing the wheels on. And I did glue them up in the center of the basket, and I just broke it loose. But that proved to be an improper placement, because if you were going to truly use this as some type of decoration, putting anything in the basket, the center of balance was too far forward. Putting the wheels directly in the center of the basket with very little weight out here, if you put any kind of decorations in there, it might want to be tippy toward the rear. So learned a lot with that one. And then there were a lot of comments in on the Facebook group with suggestions of improvements. And one of the other things that I immediately recognized upon putting this together was that's fragile. That place right there, once you got that glued on there, there wasn't a whole lot of wasn't any strength there. And that could be easily broken off, and it's got a flat tire now. So then I did a second version, moved the wheels back. And there was an issue with the seat was a little low, and I looked at my bike before putting this design together, and on my e-bike, the handlebars are even with the seat, and that's kind of what I went with. But someone mentioned, so yes, the handlebars look awful low, and the seat a little high, this, that, and so I reworked that entire front chassis today and come up with the third and final version we removed. I still wanted it to be a step through type of a bite, but I moved this bar up, really reinforcing that. Also, the comments were made about the tires looked really, really small in relation to the size of the basket. So we bumped those up considerably. Lifted the seat just slightly above the basket, changed the angle of the bars and picked them up. I'm really happy with this, using all the feedback from the Facebook group and the comments in the stream. And that is now on the website. I'm looking for the tire. And it rolled away. So finally got that done, got it online. But it was a heck of a journey to get there. After the Thursday night live ended, I continued to work on it and worked until I got the first one cut out. And that was about 2:30 in the morning. Wrapped it up, went to bed about 3 a.m. Woke up at 7:30, got up, fixed some French toast, ate the French toast, went, sat down in the recliner, and in a very short period of time fell asleep. Only to be awakened or to wake up again at 10 p.m. My body just shut down. So I had a couple hours sleep, 4 hours or so, 3.5 hours there, and then slept for over 12 hours straight. So I got nothing done yesterday, nothing. Once I woke up, ate dinner, and then went right back to sleep again. Got up this morning, finished those mods, put it on the website, and started getting ready for the live stream. And I see we got Chris. Chris, you're in the stream today, and I told you wrong whenever I was asking you about, or you asked about the living hinges. I found my living hinges. I thought I threw those away, but I did not. And I want to share a little bit with you on something that you may have watched in that stream and forgot, or maybe you didn't see it. But I want to see who all joined in with us. I've seen a bunch of folks. And I'm going to show you I've got this file saved in hobowithwood.com and laid out all on a single piece of 300 by 300 material. I'm going to show you all that and show you, I've got them on 3 layers instead of 2. And I'll show you why here in a second. Chicago Bob in the house, Steven. And my name's technically Steven, but and spelled just like yours instead of a PH. Mine's with a V. And we're not going to do any 5 hours. Since I didn't get anything done yesterday, we're going to get this wrapped up in about a 90-minute span. And then it's time to go swing some more hammers. Larry's in the house from Waco, and Larry says, don't know about anyone else, but I watched the replay of the first part of this, and to say there are a few advertisements would be an understatement! Exclamation point. What are you talking about, Larry? Advertisements? Are you talking about the ads from YouTube? I have no control over that. Advertisements? Explain yourself, and with the exclamation point. And like I said, Chris is in the building. Tom, Jack in the shop. Of course, Jack's going to be here. Yeah, okay. I thought it was odd that you weren't here. You closed them eyes for 30 seconds and out. That's kind of what happened to me yesterday. I hope you got your much needed rest. I do believe I did. Lots of regulars here. Jeff. All right, and there's Emma. Emma's a recognizable name. Terry, appreciate all y'all tuning in. And if there's any any feedback that you've got. And I'm curious, did any of you try to do this using the steps and the instructions and the walking along we did Thursday night? Did anybody make one of these of their own? Let's see here. Yeah, there's Ed. Yeah, Ed, thank you for your pointing out. And I would have seen it the very first time I tried to do that resize slots and tabs. In fact, I even tried it just to see what would happen when I should have just known that anytime there's more than 4 nodes in that region, LightBurn won't recognize it. So LightBurn ignored the first tab and only looked at the smaller one that I added to put the tire and wheel on. So that didn't work. But you got there before I did. Oh. And Chris says, funny you should mention a flat tire. I was thinking of giving the farm truck a flat tire, but that unbalanced it. Yeah, it would. Just you could skew the other 3 tires just slightly. You lower that, make that one flat, and then make each of the other 3 just a little bit larger to offset it to where it wouldn't be quite so noticeable by eyeball, but then still keep it balanced. You could get away with that, especially since you're only going to be seeing 2 of the tires at a time. And since you're all the way down there in Australia, whatever you do to it, I won't be able to see it from my house. So it'll look fine from my house. Dale says you don't see it on the site. Well, let's see here. I published it. Let's go back there, go back over here, grab that, open it. Hobo with wood. Well, hit F5 or refresh your what do you call that? Your window, because it's there right here on the home page. That's the Trike Basket. The latest project will always be the one that's on the home page in the top left corner. It's there, and if we click on it, there's the information. So it is there. I did not check it, so I just published it, but I did not log in and make sure it's there. But it is there. All right, let's see. Yeah, and I don't even know. Okay, and there's Larry says, yeah, a bunch. You might be right that Amazon is sticking them in. Still, they are overdoing it. Yeah, I have no control over those ads at all. And I have a few viewers, and what is Chris even says, go premium, no ads. I haven't done that, but I know a lot of people who have gone to YouTube Premium to get rid of those ads that pop up. But the by doing the monetization, that's how I make the money, of course, through the YouTube videos, is by them putting the ads in. I have no control over what they do. Not sure. Did a lot of comments from Larry. Yeah, Chris, I seen that. And if you guys aren't on in the Hobo with Wood Facebook group, join that. And I got messages coming in. I just need to make sure it's not doing anything with my emergencies. Okay. Someone posted in the Facebook group a photo. It looked like it was maybe a double basket behind a bike, and they had a lot of fancy engraving. They really went up really nice with it. They had some designs on the down tube and on the body of the bike and everything. I don't know if it's one that they created or something they bought, because they didn't have any explanation there. But it was a nice looking piece, that's for sure. Johnson, I suggested, I suggested add a footboard to the bottom of the top of the low rail and add a tab to the basket. It would add strength to the frame and the basket. Yeah, the basket's actually pretty tight. It doesn't need much reinforcement at all. But that lower rail, it was very, very weak. I did have two pieces on it, but they were too low and all come together at that bottom radius, and it needed to be moved. And someone said make it more like a man's bike or a boy's bike. But most of these trikes you see, the adult trikes, they all have a step through. They don't even call it a lady's bike anymore. They just say it's a step through. Okay. It says, I'm thinking about trying to design it where the baskets can be changed out for different seasons. Yeah. And something that I looked at today before I started to do the photos of it, we've all probably got, and I've got one right there, that box of coasters. Get my finger up. There it is. That's a box of coasters. You could design that so that the basket was the perfect size to be a coaster holder. You can just set that on your dining room table, or your not dining room, but your coffee table, and be your coaster holder. If you're in the big cyclist or whatever, or you can do it seasonal, like you're talking about. Can I see a front view? The way I did the front of it is I actually cut out two small pieces and just glued them on top of that fork, or to make it look like it was a fork going around the front bike or front tire on the bike. But that's optional. But looking at it from the front, she looks like that. And of course, you can put your brand on the bottom there, but all right. So now let's jump over here at LightBurn and show you why I've got it on 3 layers. I don't need to do that. I need to do that, and I need to go away with that. So the basket and all those pieces are laid out. All of this fits on a 300 by 300 piece of material. And with that laid out like that, it assembles at about 11.5 inches wide and about 4.5 inches thick or wide. 11.5 inches front to back and 4.5 inches wide. And of course, if you were going to do it for a coaster holder or something like that, and you needed this basket to be a certain width, you needed it to be so narrow, from the front, from left to right side, then if you wanted your inner dimensions of your basket to be something like that, you'd draw that out and put it on a tool path, and then select the entire image, deselect that inner square, and then just start shrinking everything down until it gets to be the size that you need that to be on the inner piece right there. And by scaling it all at once, you're going to get everything will be scaled down and it'll be the size you want it to be. But I've got these on different layers, and the different layers are, I've got just a small little engraving to put a little dot in the center of each wheel. I didn't do one on the front, but you could easily do that. But the biggest thing, I've got these internal slots, these 3 in the front of the basket, the one on top of the seat, and the one on top of the handlebars. I put those on a different layer, and they have the same cut speed and power settings as my cut layer, with the one difference being I had a kerf added to the outer, or the red layer. But these that are the internal slots, I did not add any kerf to it, because when you add kerf to the outer layer here, you're just coming out and just making that just a little bit bigger to compensate for the kerf of the laser. And you're only going to do it, in that one dimension, But when you do internal slots, it's making it bigger here, making it bigger in all four ways, and it ends up being a little too tight, or you have some fitment clearance issues. You can sand it down and make it work, but I just opt to leave those with no kerf and cut them out. And that's the reason you see 3 different layers there. Are the slots gender neutral? Well, since I would know, I'm going to have to say that those are feminine slots, and all the tabs are masculine. Let's see here. Any other? Okay. So, and Jack's question: if you resize, did it change the slots? And when you resize and shrink it down, it's going to resize everything. It's going to change your slots and tabs. But I don't think I have anything grouped. If you go to tools and resize slots and selection, okay, there is something grouped. You got that warning there, but I think it might be just the tires. Let's see, tabs. No, because I've got the bike grouped right here. It's not seeing that tab on the top of where the handlebar goes or with the seat. So in order to resize your slots and tabs, you'll need to select everything, ungroup everything, select it all, and then resize slots and selection rather. And now if I go to tabs, yeah, there's getting the tab height on that and on the seat post. Slot width, there's the 3 slots in the seat and in the handlebars. But whenever right now, everything's set at 3 millimeters. Say, okay. And again, what I would do is if this was the size of my coaster holder and I wanted all my coasters to fit nicely and tight in the back of that basket, then I would draw out that toolpath to the desired size, select the entire thing, hold control and left click on that toolpath, that desired size, temporarily group everything together so you've got the entire design, and then start shrinking it down. You need to hold the shift button while you do it, and I didn't do that. Hold your shift button and shrink it down and get it to that desired size. There's a little small. And once you get it to the size that you're looking for, then ungroup it all. Go back into resize slots and selection, and then set your desired material thickness. Now, the original download has it at 3 millimeters. So if you resize it, you're going to need to go and get your measuring tool or your ruler and find out what they are after you've resized it. So now it's showing 2.56. So now you'd go back in and go into tools, resize, old material thickness 2.56, new material thickness, whatever it is, we'll go with 3. And then what you're going to probably want to do is change your tolerance level to at least a 0.5, because when you resize that with the shrinking, it may not all be 2.56, but it'll be within 2.5, give or take half a millimeter. And that'll get you all your slots, your slot width, and your tab height. Cancel. All right. Last night, from a pencil drawing to what you got is flipping good, bud. Well, thank you. Yeah. Thursday night, we started from scratch and just used the pencil tool and a few rectangles and Gravini to create the basket. Save some time. We can draw a box and some tabs, but Gravini makes it easier. Now, I want to touch base for a second on something that Chris brought up in questions and comments in the last stream that he could stay awake. Chris, are you awake? Give us a hello, Chris, if you're still awake. Are you still with us, or did you pass out again? Chris Galligan talked about wanting to do a living hinge on the farm truck. Yep, you're good. So the farm truck I've got is open, and Chris is looking at doing a living hinge. Did you make progress with that? Did you get anything done? But he's wanting to enclose this whole thing. I'm guessing maybe if it was me, I would design it with the grill being incorporated into it. So I've got one piece. I got the grill that comes up and then incorporate the living hinge that wraps around the hood, comes up and across the top of the roof line. But something that I learned in the living hinge video and what is a hinge, how does it work, that even I forget to do sometimes, but can make a big difference on how flexible your hinge can be, especially when you need to be making some pretty tight turns. I told you that I thought that the 1.5 millimeter Y spacing between my hinge was the smallest successful one I did. And this one is 3 millimeter wood, and my material of my thickness I use for my X spacing between those cuts. So that's 3 millimeters between each one of the cuts. But then that Y spacing between each line, each row, is only 1.5 millimeters. And that's the smallest, most successful. That's the smallest. That's as small as I ever got, and it worked. But you can make this even more flexible and it still have its strength by doing one trick. And I don't know if it'll work with acrylic or not, because I know you said something about, yeah, you might be working with acrylic. And this might help with trying to make it all in one piece. You get your flex by creating all those lines, right? All those cuts, 1,000 cuts, and it's able to let that wood flip, flop, flip, flop. Well, where you start running into interference is when the wood actually begins to bind. It starts to hit itself, if you will. This I can wrap up and make full circle. And she's nothing cracked, nothing broke. It's still intact. But to give it extra clearance, this one is the exact same X and Y spacing. It's 3 millimeters with a 1.5 spacing between each row. But the difference was I did a plus 0.1 offset on every one of the line cuts. So those aren't lines. I did not cut out a line between each one. In fact, you can see me through this one. When I created the lines for the living hinge, I then did not a kerf offset, but an actual offset of each line. So I selected the entire living hinge and then did a 0.1 millimeter outward offset, deleting the original cut. And so that created itty bitty ovals instead of straight lines. And that made those much, much larger, which gave it so much more flexibility that, if this was long enough, you could double right up on itself. And it's like a slinky. So if you need extra flex in your living hinges, this living hinge was just simply a bunch of lines created with the array tool, with the X spacing being the thickness of the material. And I went as small as half of the distance at 1.5 on a 3mm wood distance between the rows. And that's flexible and it's strong. But to get extra clearance, make each one of those cuts bigger by doing an offset of each line, delete the original line, and it gets a whole lot more flexible. So try that, Chris. Yep, a wooden slinky. Exactly. And Colin, yeah, I've found if you're gonna do a piece like Chris is even talking about, Chris, if it's not gonna be a slinky. You're looking to cut a piece, put it on the truck, and then it's going to be a permanent fixture on the truck. So even steaming the wood after you've cut it all out, or just even a good spritz with some good hot water. But they make all kinds of, well, some of y'all know this better than I will. True woodworker would know what this is. What do they call them? The lictins or whatever, the something in the wood. They actually make special relaxers that you can spray on the wood, and they go in there and soften those up, and you can bend those around. But what I found is when you do that, it doesn't stay that way. It's a temporary situation. Once it dries up or dries out, it's going to kind of have a form. So these are just cut, natural cut, nothing been done to them. All right. So does anybody have any questions, comments, recommendations, or had anything that come up that they would recommend, suggest, or need any try and solve with the public forum we got going on? And I looked, Stephen, was that you that was looking for the disc holder? I think it was. I looked and looked and looked and looked. I did a whole lot of cleaning. I may have even cleaned up that on the file and got rid of it. I can't remember. But I looked for that disc file, and I do remember your email now. You said you made one of your own, which I'm sorry I didn't get back to you. But with everything I got going on, I knew I was tired, but I didn't know how tired I was until I slept for 15 hours straight yesterday. It's going to matter if what kind of wood are you using. If you're using plywood, then it's not going to matter too terribly much, depending on the quality of your plywood. I go across the grain with my plies because on this one, I don't know if it's actually, honest to goodness, real plywood, but you got a thin veneer on the front and the back. And then the filler, it may or may not, it may be just that filler of some type and not truly another layer or a ply. But real plywood is made, of course, they alternate the grain direction with the plywood. Well, this center section here may not even have any grain to it. It may just be all filler of some type. And since that's the case, I make sure that I put my living hinges going across the grain that I do see, which is on the front and the back. But if you're using real hardwoods, definitely go across the grain. But some hardwoods you'll find are more flexible than others. Some they'll work with living hinge, and some of them just don't work at all. If you get some woods that have a lot of real noticeable grain, like the zebra woods and the wingay and all that, the really beautiful woods, living hinges don't work well with those. The less grain you see, the more likely it's going to work. But I would still go across the grain. And let's see here. I changed the handlebar angle upward. Yeah. And, that's, whenever I was looking at handlebars, I actually walked over there and looked at my my e-bike, and somebody commented, in I think on the Facebook group, said, "Yeah, it looks like you got to lean over to get the handlebars." Well, I do on my bike. My handlebars are the exact same. Actually, I think my seat height might be either right at it or just slightly above my handlebars. But hey, if you watched the Thursday night, you see how easy it is to change that. Easy peasy. Okay, yeah, I can do that. Could you show us in LightBurn how you offset the hinge? Yep. Uh, yep. Yeah, and I did see your camping sign. Stephen did his version of the I'd rather be camping. He did his slightly different. And I tell you something that I found really uh, intriguing was your tongue hitch on your caravan. That's not anything like we have in the States and nothing I've seen before. That was a unique setup. All right. And Burl's asking, where do I become a patron? Let's see here. Show. There you go. I haven't seen. I take that back. The low cost wood that I get from the big box stores like Lowe's, man, there's all kinds of junk in that stuff. Uh, I've seen stuff that almost looks like dental floss, polyester, cloth. It just junk. But the stuff that I have in this, my premium Baltic birch, I don't see any of that. I don't have any glue pockets. I don't have, it's obviously, I think some type of feel, but it's not. It's great stuff. And that's I'll put that link in the comments. Hobo. Let's see here. Premium Baltic birch. And I see a lot of people making comments about them having problems with the results from their laser. Lots of flare ups and material burning away, and lots of smoky. And a lot of times it just comes down to the quality of the material you're using. I started out trying to get out as inexpensive as I could, using some of the cheap stuff from Lowe's and even getting some of the basswoods and stuff that you can get online. But I wasted more material with that cheap stuff that I was better off just buying the premium stuff to begin with. Less waste, better outcome, better results. So I put that link in the comments, hobowithwood.com premium Baltic birch. I get it on Amazon, 45 sheets at a time. It comes vacuum sealed in a great big box, so that it's plastic wrapped and vacuum sealed. It's protected from the environment. It's really, really good stuff. Let's see here. Yeah, Chuck. This isn't MDF. I don't know what this stuff is. Well, yeah, I don't know what it is, but it's really good, really good, really good stuff. Yeah, the underlayment, lots of strings and lots of junk. All right. So there was a question about how to do the offset in LightBurn. I'll do that real quick because that won't take but a second. Switch over here. I want to say new. So if I'm creating a living hinge, I start with my pencil tool and I just draw a straight line. And I grab that. Let's put it on the black layer so we can see it a little bit better. Get my array tool. If I'm using 3mm wood, I'll put a 3mm X spacing in there. If it's the 4.5mm stuff from Lowe's, I'll put a 4.5mm. And then my rows, it's going to depend on how much of a curve do I need and how strong do I want it to be. Let's see here. We'll do a Y spacing. That's X. We'll do 4.5 as well on this one. Shift it by half. And now start increasing our count. And there's how I create the beginnings of the living hinge. Say okay. Draw out my rectangle, whatever size I needed it to be. Center that up over my hinge. And then Alt Shift C. Let's see. Come on. Range tools. Nope. Select tools. I don't know why it does this to me. There and tools, because you're not doing priority right. Cut shapes. So once you've got your array created, select your array, hold your shift button and select the tool path you need it to be, and then tools, cut shapes, and delete. And there's your initial living hinge. But to create that offset, to get those larger, you just simply select that whole thing and come over here to your offset tool. Make sure you're in millimeters, offset, and a 0.1mm. And if you look, there's your original line inside there, and it's coming out 1/10 of a millimeter in each direction. And turn on your delete original objects and say okay. And so there is that living hinge with a 0.1mm offset. It's actually 0.2 because it went outward in both directions. And that right there would give you a whole lot more flexible living hinge. No, I did not put any foot pegs on the bike. There was on my e-bike. No, my e-bike is not a lazy man's e-bike. You have to pedal. There is no throttle. It's got pedals, because if you ain't pedaling, you ain't going nowhere. It's just the motor is an assist. But I opted not to get one that's just got a throttle and go. Da, da, da. All right. Well, let's see. I am happy to do that. Thank you for asking. Gave us some content for the live stream. And don't want to beat a dead horse, but those who have been tuning in and watching are aware that, and why I'm keeping my phone turned on so I can see I've got some stuff going on that I've got to be reachable. I can't be even out of touch for a short period of time. And I'm remodeling my house, the church, the shop. I'm turning a half bath into a full bath. And I'm stretched like Stretch Armstrong, the toy from the 70s. I'm pulled in so many directions and it's not even funny. So I'm a little bit. Is there a standard length for the cut line, or is there some sort of formula as the cut lines? Each one, I do it. Each one is different. If you're talking about the length of the initial line, I will let the. The perimeter of the perimeter of the living hinge is going to be a known size before you start creating your living hinge. If you've got something that you've got making, if you're doing one of those living hinges around a heart or whatever, you've got that shape already. You already know what the shape of the heart or the shape of the living hinge is going to be, and then if it's something that you're doing, you want it to be one of those hearts with a 2-inch hinge around it. It needs to be 2 inches wide, but what that perimeter of that hinge needs to be before you begin designing your hinge. And I let that dictate the size of the hinge, because if you do, and I had some failed pieces here, but those I probably did throw away. If you create a living hinge and you've only got, and I'm going to, the areas that aren't cut, that gap in there, or that 3 millimeter spacing, where it's in a perfect line all the way down through there, we'll call that, for a lack of a better term, we'll call it a spine in this video. If you've only got one spine going down through there, then it becomes very, very fragile. The more spines you put in it, the stronger your living hinge is going to be. I typically want at least 2, at the very minimal. 3 is better. And if that will determine the length of each of those cuts. And if I've lost you in on there, let's see here. Go back over here. If I know, like I said, you should know your living hinge dimensions before you even start making your living hinge. So if I had to make a living hinge that was going to be 120 millimeters wide, and we'll go with 150 tall. That's how big that living hinge needed to be. And I want to have a minimum of 2 spines, and that would be just 1 down the middle. I'm better off doing 3. You're better off having at least 3 spines. That gives you 3, and then the next one will be 2 instead of, so you don't not stuck with just 1 spine down the middle. So if that's 120 millimeters, and I've got a straight line, and I need to know how long that line's going to be, and then I know that I need to have, if I'm going to do my spaces, the X spacing, if I'm going to use 3 millimeters, and I'm going to come over here, we'll put it right in the corner. Come to Papa. Or right up against the side, rather. If you start your array tool, you can tell it you want 3 millimeter wide or X spacing. So now you got 1, 2, 3. 3's too many, or 4's too many. So if you could look at that and say, all right, that's definitely going to be big enough, and I could use that and then use my size to cut it down, like I did over here, to cut out the overall in shape. Or you can say, all right, well, I need 1, 2, 3 spaces. That's 9. So if it's 120 millimeters total, 120, subtract the 9 millimeters of spacing, then I would be 120 millimeters. I'm looking at my width up here as a calculator. It's 120 millimeters total. Subtract the 9 inches for the individual pieces of the spine, and then divide it by 4. It didn't work. 120. Let's do the calculator, because sometimes it don't cooperate. It likes to do so much. 120 subtract 9 divided by 4. 27.75 millimeters. 27.75. And if I put that against the side and then start my array, then I do 3 millimeter, then that should take those perfectly right across there. So that would give me exact spacing, but watch what happens. You shift by half, you add another row. Now you've thrown yourself off over there. So just give yourself another. So you're going out beyond and do all the way down your total rows. Let's change that to 3 as well. And say okay. Then move your tool path to the center And what I would look for is try and make the toolpath end, because with the width of your piece is going to be a set and known, but the length of your living hinge, if it's a little bit longer, it's irrelevant, because it's going to flex where you need it to and not flex where you don't need it to. So make that the size of that living hinge. Then select your living hinge, select your outside path, and Alt Shift C. No, it's not Alt Shift C. Yeah, Alt Shift C. Hinge, path, Alt Shift C, and delete. And it's not doing there. I don't know why my keys aren't working. So there would give me my living hinge, and should give me a good strong living hinge. But I do it a minimum of, or ideally I want 3 and 2, and then that is going to dictate how long each one of those lines are. It works best with odd number of spines. Yeah. Yeah. For the longest number, because whenever you split it, it's going to be one less. So if you're odd here, your evens here, odds here, evens here. Chris says he does it different. He says, I normally do 3 lines plus the next 2 plus 2 half lines for narrow hinges. And that's, I think that was what the kind of the end result was there, I think, because there were shorter lines on the outside. Okie dokie. Just checking the messages to make sure it was all these are y'all and not anything personal. And I do apologize for this, but I can't ignore these right now. Okay, good. I told him I was going live at 3, but if it's a true emergency, not to hesitate. Anything? Anybody else? Any questions? Anything else going on? Nesting. All right. Well, nesting is, LightBurn has a nesting tool built into it. It's a third-party nesting tool, and it doesn't work that great. It's very, very slow, and typically I can get a better result faster than the nesting tool that LightBurn has built into it. Emma, you were confused by the living hinge? Well, we'll go back to Emma's. Okay, no, the LightBurn nesting. You were confused about LightBurn nesting. All right. Well, I found this very, very, very early on in my LightBurn days. It's been in LightBurn for quite some time. If we go over to LightBurn, in fact, let's start fresh, new, and let's create a mess of stuff. Let's draw out a circle, square. Now I'm going to group all these. Right now, I'm just going to create a mess of things and do, let's see, we group those. Yep, do an array of those. And let's do random orientation and say okay. All right, so if I've got a whole bunch of items that need to be nested, and we'll move these from being overlapping each other. In fact, we're going to ungroup it all. All right, so I've got a whole big random mess of pieces out there. And I want to look at nesting those to get those in their best possible cut pattern, the minimum amount of waste. Well, in laser tools, it's not laser tools, no, window, arrange, is it arrange? Yeah, in the arrange menu, right here, nest selected. Nest selected. If you click on that, you get this message says the file name to import has been copied to your clipboard. Click OK when nesting is complete. And when you do that, you've got that window sitting there. But what you didn't see, because it popped up in my other screen, is this will populate over LightBurn. And this is svgnest.com. It is an outside open source nesting tool that will nest your images for you. But this does not work that great. It takes forever. LightBurn says that it will, it created a file to import, and it's on your clipboard. So if we go back to that stupid tool, there we go. Upload SVG. And it was on the clipboard. But let's see here. It should be in the downloads as well, I think. Yeah, right here. LightBurn Nest. And say, okay, open. So now there is the image from LightBurn. There is that. All of those are on this nesting tool. And it has been so long since I used this, because once I figured out how it works and how poorly it works, I never used it again. Let's see here. So all that's there. Now, here's one of the things about the in LightBurn. If all of this isn't on your work path, like right now, it's on the work bed. That's why I moved everything over, deleted a circle that was half on there, half off. If any part of this stuff is not on the work area, that tool ain't gonna see it. It only sees what's on the work area. And go back over there again. And it asks you what you want to do. How do you want to download it? Let's see here. Start nest. Now it's going to start nesting all that for you together. And it's showing you all the different possibilities and iterations, as they call it here, to try and get those nested up as best it can. And it'll continue doing this until you find a result that you like, and then you can just hit download SVG and it'll stop, send a download to you. You can download that SVG, then import it back into LightBurn. And by the time it does all this, I found that I can be just as effective moving my stuff around and getting as good a result, or better even sometimes, than this tool will. So I'm going to stop nest, and then you would hit download SVG, and it would be in your downloads. You download it, import it. And I just find that it's not that great of a tool. Get rid of that. And if you're doing like when I did that bike, when I did the bike, we're going to delete. In fact, we'll just say new file, new. No, don't need to save anything. Open, recent. You see here, this toolpath I have on here is a 300 by 300 millimeter toolpath. That is the size of the material that I work with and that I recommend everybody getting. And so I'll put a toolpath out there of the size of the material that I have to work with. And you see this orientation of this basket, how it's, this isn't how Gravini spit it out. I just started moving things around and position them where I needed to get them to fit into that piece of material. And it's just like working a jigsaw puzzle. You just start grabbing things and moving them around, putting them where you need to, wherever the space will allow it. You start with the big, bulky, cumbersome stuff first that really doesn't have much tolerance for moving, like your basket. You position that basket, and initially, I think I even had this over here, something like that, and started moving things around. I was like, okay, well, with that there, where's my bike going? I didn't want to group that. Is this all grouped? It's not. So I'm gonna, and this, you got to be careful that you've got everything grouped that you want, come on, and not something you don't, and then group it. Now, if I see there's nowhere to put that bike, so I'm like, okay, well, so that won't work. So I know I need to move something. So I just grabbed the first piece, moved it out of the way. Not that stupid. I moved it temporarily to where I knew I had room to put this in. Okay, I got that on there. Then start looking for what was the next troublesome piece. Well, the handlebars, they won't fit up there nice, not like that, but they could be moved and twisted and spun around. And it's just trial and error. Find what fits, what looks good, what'll work. It's like, okay, well, I can put, okay, there, that fits. But now, do I have anywhere to put that tire? The tire won't fit. It'll fit there, maybe, but it fits there. But the handlebars are in the way. So I have to take, those aren't grouped. So I had to take the handlebars back out. Go ahead and group them so I don't do that again. And if you use that nesting tool, the svgnest.com, just a few times, you'll see that actually doing this yourself by using trial and error will get you as good a result, sometimes even faster than that SVG nest would work. And now that's all nested together. So there are tools, and there is a tool in LightBurn for nesting, but sometimes it's just a matter of just a good old-fashioned jigsaw puzzle. You move them around until you get them fit. And I strongly recommend drawing that tool path that you need it to fit in, and then just have at it. And Chris says nesting is a lower priority for LightBurn, but is being worked on, time permitting, according to Jason. Yeah, he gave us that same line at Expo. It's not high on their priority list. Yeah, if you're doing something that is where your wood grain is relative, or takes priority, you got to be careful with your rotation. And if I ever get a chance to finish my rows that I'm doing on this, and someone told me that this desk that I've got, it's an old child's writing desk. And they told me they're pretty sure it's out of an old schoolhouse, and I've never seen anything like this before. But they said, yeah. He said, and they said, you got a writing desk on it? I said, yeah. And he says, it's on the right side. And he said, yeah. I said, yeah. He said, there's no such thing as a left-handed writing desk in the schools. All the schools put right-handed writing desk in their schools. And he said, I know, because he grew up having to do this all the time. He's left-handed. But if I ever get a chance to do my rose compass inlay in this, what I'm going to do with all of those pieces of the compass is I am going to rotate them so that the grains are, when it cuts out, all of the grains are running perfectly north to south. so that as I place them around the rows, all of them are pointing to the center of the compass as I do the inlays. So be mindful of your grains and patterns when you are twisting and putting stuff together, especially if you're doing inlays and you want to add even more character to your design. Anybody else got any questions, comments? Dale asked how the reason I'm keeping my phone handy is I've got some health issues in the family, and it's going. It's going. Oh, here's something else, Chris, that you might think about. This could be kind of neat. I don't know if you've seen when I did this on the living hinge. Instead of just a straight line, I've got this, and there's a fancy name for this. And I forget the fancy. It's a big old long word, type of hinge, but it still flexes, still does everything that other hinge does. But I put a satin backing on it. So that might be something you could do on the hood of the truck if you were going to do something that was going to be open. By putting that fabric on the back, it gives it a nice finish to it, and something different than just a straight line. Woo-hoo, it looks like trippy. Somebody snuck a donation in on me, $10. Thank you. I didn't see that. I wanted to acknowledge it. I didn't see it. Oh, Tom. Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much. Yeah, that's kind of cool. And especially if you're doing a painted piece, you'd have a painted piece and then have a different background and more color. I was thinking about you after you asked about the living hinge, and I was prepared to talk about this with you Thursday, but you went to sleep on us. And there are a couple of different shapes, and I wished I could remember that name for this, but I can't remember. Where do you find the info on the different hinges? Let me look here. Art library, living hinges. What have I got? Nope. I saved a few, but let me look at Word up. And I had I had something funny I'm going to share with you, totally unrelated to LightBurn, but it popped up in my Facebook feed, a memory. And it was one of my biggest thorn in my side as a business owner. Let's see here. Oh, come on. It's a great big word. It's a great big word. Yeah. And yeah, and Chris says that any symmetrical line or shape should work in theory. No, it's not the butterfly. It's a big word. And it's big word for a redneck. And I know butterfly. Uh, but here we go. Let's see here. Images. If and what I just searched for in Google was different types of laser cut living hinges. And here is an image that's got all of these different shapes. And like Chris says, if you've got that, that's not even symmetrical. This is an asymmetrical line on this one, but it is spaced out symmetrically. So as long as you keep the living hinge symmetrical, it should work. As long as you take into consideration the thickness of your materials, the spacing. This one I've used a few times. And I wonder if that big word's in here somewhere. But there he has a whole big swatch of different types of hinges. But I Googled different types of laser cut living hinges, and you'll see a whole bunch of different patterns and designs. And let's see here. Yeah, they make great speaker cover. Absolutely. No, not parametric. It seems like it was equal something. You know, yeah, it's kind of like lattice. And John says there's a whole lot of different styles and living hinges on Etsy. But I tell you, you can come up with some unique stuff of your own. And as Chris said, he said this line symmetrical at first, but it's not even about the line being symmetrical. It's about making the hinge symmetrical. So even using a little bit of asymmetry, as long as you keep every bit of it symmetrical, and you can do that easily using the grid array tool, using the spacing, X and Y spacing to keep everything symmetrical, you might be able to create some pretty unique shapes of your own. But let's see here. I want to, we're 1:15 in, and we're going to cut this in another 15. We're going to make it 90 minutes today. This morning when I woke up, my routine is to check for YouTube comments, Facebook comments, Patreon comments, and make sure everybody's taken care of. And then when I logged into Facebook popped up with a memory of, this day 4 years ago. You've seen those. Well, as a business owner, the biggest struggle I had was keeping qualified employees. And it was getting harder and harder and harder. And for everybody that's here that are in my old fart category, all you guys that are my senior and old enough to be my dad, count your blessings that you did not have to work with the pool of people that are out there now, because the mentality has shifted so drastically from the time that I was a 16, 17-year-old trying to get my first job to what it is today. It's ridiculous. But this was 6 years ago. I posted this on Facebook trying to look for people, trying to find employees. And a few of you have already seen this because you gave it a thumbs up. You've, let's see here. Open that up. Not that. And people, unfortunately, they thought it was a joke because it was so sad and so pitiful. But on June 29th, 2018, I posted, Still looking to hire multiple employees. Certified state inspector's license is a plus, but not required. If any of the following apply to you, do not bother to apply. 1. If you are proud of all of the participation trophies, do not apply. You do not deserve a trophy for simply showing up. So don't think for a second you deserve a paycheck for simply showing up. If you aren't the best at what you do, try harder. Too many people are content to be mediocre. If you think that close enough is good enough, do not apply. It is not rocket science, but details matter. 3, if showering and deodorant are optional for you, this job is not an option for you. I get it. Some of you like your own funk, but when your funk occupies my space and lingers in a car after you have left it, it is no longer just your funk. You have shared and given it to others and that didn't ask for their car to smell like a bag of dirty athletic supporters left in the sun for a week. 4, if you need a safe space or a crying closet, this job is not for you. Crying closet? Seriously? Just don't. Number 5, if men twice your age can move twice as fast as you, this job is not for you. If fellas twice your age have to run circles around you, it's because you are in the way. If you are in the way, you are not part of the solution, you are part of the problem. 6, and now this is sad but true. 6, if you suffer from nomophobia, chinomorphophobia, hippopotamonstrostra, I forget even how to say that one, and or anthropophobia. Oh my God, these are real things. Shaking my head. Seriously, screaming inside. Just go find your safe space. God forbid you should suffer from phobophobia. And again, it's a real thing. And some of you will read this and think it's an attempt at humor, but sadly it's not. This is a real attempt to find qualified, motivated employees. I promise one of the last hires suffered from at least one of those phobias, and he is no longer here. If you have been treated for text neck, once again, not making this up, do not apply here. If you've been treated for text neck, you probably suffer from nomophobia and haven't been diagnosed, and you should see a doctor. If you have no experience, you will not be considered. Watching your grandfather change the oil in his lawnmower does not meet my requirements of experience. Owning a Craftsman 216-piece mechanics tool set does not make you a mechanic. Just like me buying a bag of flour does not make me a baker. Seriously, did the Chicago Bulls sign Michael Jordan after he simply woke up one morning and decided he wanted to be a basketball player? No. He honed his skills for decades before signing with the NBA. If you want to work on cars but have no experience, please go to work at a cheap tire store. Not the best place to buy your tires. Go there, tear up their equipment, damage their cars, look at their managers with a stupid look on your face and say, sorry, after you screw up a $700 wheel. Get your experience, figure it out on their dime, and figure out on their dime if this is a job for you. If you do it and it is what you want to work, if you do and it is what you want to be, you work to be the best, then and only then should you apply. I haven't mentioned where I'm hiring, and that's intentional. I don't expect everyone to know who I am or where I work. But if you aren't intelligent enough to figure out from simply looking at my profile, you're not intelligent enough to work here. The last time I posted I was hiring, someone lacked the intelligence to figure out where I was hiring. I refrained from telling him he had the lack of necessary intellectual skills to work for me. I was afraid I'd have to spend an hour explaining how I knew that without the pleasure of ever meeting him. If you were offended by anything in this post, go straight to your crying closet and your mommy and tell her and tell you, and your mommy will tell you when it's safe to come out. But do not wait for an apology. It ain't happening. Now, will the two remaining candidates please step forward and apply? And I see more and more of posts like this at restaurants and everywhere, people trying to find help. It is nuts, absolutely nuts. So the one good thing, not one good thing, but just another good thing that you should count your blessings for is you don't have to deal with these young little, because it's bad. It's really bad. Uh yeah, it's not lying. Kids got no worth ethics, and no work values. And I'm not gonna. They are a different breed, and I tell you right now, this right here for me, this YouTube and the YouTube world and this whole social media thing, I honestly wished I had found it a decade ago or even sooner, because this is something I really, really love to do. I love getting in here, interacting with you guys and teaching and showing things. I despise working in retail and having to deal with the entitled public and the simpletons that are being put out there in the workforce today. The schools aren't teaching the kids anything. Um, I wished I had found this sooner, but it also is creating a bunch of people who don't know how to do anything. They're popular for being popular, or they're able to generate some revenue without doing anything. They're not making anything. They're not contributing anything. But yet their popularity, their looks, their comedic timing, whatever, is allowing them to get by and make some money. But this ain't going to last forever, and they have no skills, and it's sad. It is sad. And that's the word that Larry says. Sadly, the younger generations do not have the work ethic, and they take no pride in what they do. That's it. No pride. Ah. Parametric is one of the words, but the word I was looking for, I'm almost positive that I'd seen the term used. It was equal. The first 4 or 5 letters were the same first 4 or 5 letters of equal. EQUA. I don't remember, but just I think it was a big fancy word for helping you or saying that it was equal distance, symmetrical, all this stuff. It was one word that summed all of it up. But those phobias, I think it was nomophobia or phobophobia. Phobophobia is the fear of phobias. I can't go anywhere. I have phobophobia. I'm afraid I might be afraid of something. But nomophobia, I think, is the fear of not having your phone. And that is an honest to God phobia now. Nomophobia. That's they can't. They got to have their phone right here. I can't. Where's my phone? Oh God, where's my phone? And then those are the ones who get text neck because they can't be off their phone. Ridiculous. Question mark. You know it's bad when you throw someone a tape measure and ask them to measure that piece of pipe, and they say it's 4 foot by 3 foot with 13 little marks. Now, yeah, it's bad. It's something along that line, but not quite. I may be completely missing it, and only imagine I remembered something that was equal something. Uh, the yeah, kids learn no self-respect, no work ethic, respect of others. Yeah, it starts at home, but the the parents, unfortunately, when they don't take the initiative to start instilling any of that into them, and they're kind of depending on it to be taught in school. And well, the schools have got all their own agendas now, and they don't, when I graduated high school, we had classes at the school that taught electrical, plumbing, roofing, brick masonry. Then there was the 4-H club, farmers. But they don't do any of that anymore. None of that. All of that's gone. And that's, I don't even know if they even have home ec classes anymore. Teach a kid how to cook, how to balance a checkbook. All that's gone. It's more important to have safe spaces and crying spaces, and let you pick your own pronoun. You don't feel like being a he or she today? Oh, you want to be a they? Oh, you want to be a cat? Okay, you're a cat. Yeah, you don't need to know how to balance your checkbook, but we'll call you a kitty cat from Yeah, that was the word. That was the word. All right. So that's on the website, hobowithwood.com. I'm going to wrap this up, and I don't know what's in store for next week. I'll get inspiration from somewhere. Some of you are continuing to send me some ideas and suggestions, and I appreciate that. Keep them coming in. But I'm probably for the next couple of weeks at least, I'm with this renovation I've got going on. I'm taking walls out, putting doors in, putting in showers. Lots of work. So I'm going to be a little spread a little thin. Yeah. You'll have to come back and watch the replay, Woodworker Gene, because we're wrapping her up. Thanks for everybody that tuned in. Thanks for everybody that's been with me throughout the week. And then we'll see what next week has in store. Don't know. You guys have a good weekend. And I promise this. For those, and I don't know how much the rest of you guys around the world were, if you were even bothered to watch our ridiculous presidential debate. But there's another one scheduled, and they'll probably have some more between now and then, because God only knows. I will not do another heads up against our two octogenarians, whatever those old farts that should not. They shouldn't be where they're at, but they are. Neither one of them should be where they're at. But I won't do a heads up against them. I won't force you to choose between watching a presidential debate or me, because I'd probably want to watch that one just for the sheer entertainment value as it is. Well, Chris, that if you didn't, it's on YouTube. You can go back and watch that one. It's Chris says that he does enjoy a good comedy. This debate, they did not do it before a live audience, and they had control over each of their microphones. They each were allotted a certain amount of time to reply to each question. And if they went over the time, they just shut their mics off. And so it was an extremely controlled environment, which it needed to be probably. But the funniest thing I've seen, and I'm going to say this and get off here. I'm not a huge fan of either one of the candidates. We should have so much better options. But at the end, it's over, it's done, fade to black, it's off. But you can find on YouTube where the cameras were still rolling, and one of the candidates walks off the stage, easy peasy, no problem, full of, and the other one, his wife has to come and get him, hold his hand, help him down the step, and he's very meek about any of his movements, and you can tell he's just lost. He's lost, and he's running for the top office in this country. But neither one of them's a great choice. Yes, Larry, the moderators did do a good job of keeping everybody under control, but vote for the best golfer. If you haven't seen it, you need to go watch it because that was even brought up in the debate. Guys, you guys have a good one. Thank you for hanging out, and we'll see you Tuesday. I'll probably do another live Tuesday and Thursday, and if you don't get a chance to tune in, you always catch it on the replay. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next week. Y'all have a good weekend.